Mike Imanaga II started a no-hitter. He threw 7 of the 9 innings. Matt Chapman got extended, and we're going to draft 6 apiece, so one is left out. The rotations from the 13 postseason contenders as play stands right now. It is the morning of Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Jack RMG's Baseball Show. As always, it is presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. We like sort of kind of MacGyvered this thing because you were in the throes of a move on Wednesday. Peter and I were going to do the pod, and then Peter was like, "Oh crap, Spectrum outage. How do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Do you want to do tonight?" He was like, "Sure, we can do that." And then the Spectrum outage got pushed even further, so Peter is still without internet. Do you miss living in that rat trap of a city?
Not at all. It's funny. I was thinking about that. You are at the whim. I've lived in a lot of different places now at this point for like decent amounts of time. I've never had more recurring outages than what you have in New York, which is the funniest because you also pay the most for everything there.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they told Peter 7, and then I was like, yeah, good luck. Like,
Good luck.
and I know Peter was not optimistic on 7 either.
Right.
And at 9, he texts, "No, still don't have it." And your game also ran like what
It
till
was
nine
ridiculous.
45. Rare Bubba Chandler 5 walk situation there. I know that there was other factors that
Yeah,
extended
they
that game,
compounded. Yeah.
but Bubba's. I was optimistic that you guys would be able to get that episode off at 9:30 because Bubba Chandler would shove. He threw all right, but 5 walks from Bubba.
Uh,
It's a slight, and you could blame maybe like 1% of this show getting pushed over on Bubba Chandler, I think.
No doubt. I'm going to push it actually to 1.6, 1.7%. Bubba, he walked back-to-back guys in the second after an 8 pitch first, and then either walked back-to-back guys in the fourth or it was separated by a punch out. It was weird, and the walks were compounding. That happens to him sometimes. Like there are some starts where he's struggling to land one of the secondaries, and he'll try and like will himself out of it. And the fastball was sailing a bit. Now, when it was in the strike zone, nobody was touching it. Like he ran it up to 98.6, and it was. I mean, there were middle fastballs that guys were swinging
Yeah.
comically under, and that's what Bubba can do. But he was, missing eye high. He was sailing his fastball a little bit. He was yanking his slider. So, room for improvement, I guess, next time out. But Nick York, 3 doubles. This guy's been hitting the
Whoa.
crap out of the ball, dude. He's hitting like 380 in
I'm
30
telling
games.
you, I'm telling you that's going to be a sneaky win-win trade on the prospect
No
swap. Quinn
doubt.
Priester, what, 6 shutty, 8 Ks?
Yeah, no walks.
No walks with the Red Sox AAA affiliate and Nick York starting to swing it a little bit in Indy. So
Yeah.
could be a sneaky little win-win swap there. Also, I got to see Mackenzie Gore yesterday go 6 1/3
Dude.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Five and a third, perfect, right?
5 1/3, 5 1/3 perfect. Yeah, it was in the 6th inning. You were correct. He looked great. He looked like he was kind of back to what we saw in the first half, which there was I'm pretty sure 575 people at the Marlins game yesterday.
Good. How many of them were staffers? Like the ushers are 110.
The percentage of people in stadium that were staffers was probably at an all-time high. It was pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But it was cool because we were able to just kind of like move down and be pretty close to home plate. And
Yeah.
like the Nationals like intrigue is just so much higher now too, where you get to see Wood and Cruz. Abrams is really struggling though, man. Like when you can get that close and just watch these guys battle in the box, like you can just kind of see
Right.
when a guy's struggling, like the body language, like you can tell Abrams feels like he's getting in the count 0-2 right away.
It's a lot easier for me now to decipher who's in defense mode, and it
Yeah,
just seems like Abrams is in defense mode, regardless of the arm that he
100%.
sees.
100%. It was pretty wild to see like when you're right there and then um I the other thing that was crazy is Jose A. Ferrer,
Hmm.
uh, lefty reliever, running 99-mile-an-hour like turbo sinkers. That was cool to see up close. But yeah, the Nationals are they're coming together a little bit. They didn't win the game somehow. Still, the Marlins won that thing.
Yeah.
Valiente Bellozo,
Uh-huh.
Valente Bellozo, again, dude. Again, like 6 shutty.
I hate it.
I wanted to say like, oh, this guy's the next Javier Assad. Javier Assad throws 3 ticks harder.
Right.
Belloso sits 89. So I want this guy to be good so bad just because we were talking about it. Like if you throw below 90, I am rooting for your success as much as anybody because I just think it's so fun when someone bucks the trend and makes everybody reevaluate the definitive lines that they place on what a major leaguer has to look like.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see him do that here. What people are not talking about enough is the gritty 3-2 curveball take by Griffin Conine to break up the perfect game
Hmm.
and draw the walk. But that's neither here nor there. Xavier Edwards walked it off, and it's a game that nobody will remember in about 5 more hours.
A lot of people also aren't giving Griff enough love for a very strong F word after he popped up in the
Glad it
ninth
got put
inning.
in.
That was good.
You
It
know,
was,
it's funny because like the field mics really pick them up.
yeah,
When you just drop the like, you pop up, you hear it all the time. It's just like the fuck. But
right.
and then sometimes the announcers pretend that they didn't hear it. Other times like, oh, Conine not pleased with that one, or we're sorry, our field mics are really good. Well, any of those several. What would you do in that spot?
Be like
What do you think?
good. I would probably just good baritone there,
Yeah.
and 10 people would pick it up, but the other, people watching would be like, what's he
What is
talking
he saying?
about? This guy's
Uh,
stupid.
yeah, I texted him because I was like, 3-2 walk there, like that take was nasty. And he goes, yeah, it might have been one of my better walks. And I was like, also one of your better fucks you've gotten off in a long time. Like he's
Yeah.
like, no, dude, I had way better ones in double A. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, if you had higher ones in double A, the field
Yeah.
mics are really gonna get those. So we were
Yeah.
talking about like how it's pretty commonplace, but like guys once they get to the show really have to like cut it down. I think the minor leagues, it's probably
Oh, dude.
20x because
Oh,
you know that it's not going to get picked up.
and it's
So
not
that
like you have just the drum of, a crowd stirring. It's not like you have that, ambient sound where you just have the hum of like 20, 30,000 people in the ballpark to drown it out. In minor league baseball, like you hear everything.
everything,
Everything.
everything, but no one cares. So like
Right.
the difference is, yeah, I guess when you're on, MLB Big Inning or just on two different broadcasts, like it's gonna get picked up, especially in Marlins Park because you actually have the minor league crowd, but then the
Right.
major league technology. So you're actually double boned. Like, you could probably say it under your breath, and it's getting picked up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool though. That was the first Marlins game I've been to at Marlins Lone Depot Park this year, and yeah, I mean I'll probably go see Zach Wheeler throw on Saturday, but
Mhm.
man, I thought I was gonna go the whole year without going to a game.
But
I
hey,
thought so.
when Griff gets up, you got to go. Last thing, Valente Bellozo, 66 innings in the minor leagues, a 4.64 ERA, 47 innings in the major leagues, a 3.78 ERA.
And if you take out
Riddle
that course start, and I know you can't like totally play that game, but
right.
like, hey, the one
Low
place that
threes.
is a terrible environment for a fly ball pitcher,
Yeah.
like he's been shoving.
He's been
No
shoving,
sense.
dude. Another guy that's been shoving is clearly Shota Imanaga, and the ERA is under 3 after he worked 7 no-hit innings in a combined no-no. It was Shota Imanaga, it was Nate Pearson, and it was Porter Hodge. Before we get into Shota, credit to Alex Cohen, man. That's the third big league game that guy ever did, and he got a no-hitter at Wrigley. I think the first Wrigley Field no-hitter since 1972.
Wow.
That's luck, man, but that is awesome, and he nailed it all night long, and I'm so happy for the voice of the Iowa Cubs that is getting his first taste of big league ball, and he is one of the good dudes in minor league baseball, no doubt.
Yeah, awesome guy. Big fan of Alex Cohen. So glad he got the opportunity to get back up there. And while they're hot, it just seems like the
Mhm.
Cubs, they're doing a lot of things right all of a sudden. But I'm really glad he was able to be on the call for that no-no. And it would have been cool, yeah, for Imanaga to be able to be stretched out all the way there. But I feel like we're gonna get a lot of those like six inning no hitter, like Imanaga tosses over the baton type of thing because he's not always the most efficient, but
Right.
he's going to get plenty of swing and miss and get those fly balls as well later on. But I think Imanaga really kicking things back into gear, right? It's kind of been that like starting unbelievably well, hit that snag. It's like hitters we talk about, right? Like when you first
Right.
get to the bigs, like pitchers adjust to you. How do you adjust back? It's the same thing with pitchers, right? Like, especially when you're a guy that relies on deception and high fastball usage. Of course, hitters are saying, okay, after the first time they faced him, they were talking about it. Remember, like, why can't we hit this guy? His stuff isn't that good, quote unquote, because of the deception and what he creates. Of course, the stuff is good, but it just doesn't traditionally look like stuff that we typically label as good. But when you get that kind of vert from that release, that's good stuff.
Right.
But the point being, hitters started to adjust and say, okay, let me hunt that fastball and let me try to take some other things away. So Imanaga adjusts back and starts locating a little bit in different places and starts mixing in some more pitches and starts spinning it a little bit more. And here he is back again at being incredibly efficient because if hitters have to really lock in on your one pitch, your fastball,
Yeah.
you can use that to your advantage again and adjust and get them off balance in other ways. The difference is usually guys that are pitchers that hitters need to game plan for the fastball specifically maybe don't have the secondaries to go
Right.
with it. So that game plan will usually help and that'll stall out that pitcher. Imanaga's always had the split and then we've talked about it. Like I want to see him spin it more and now he's starting to do that a little bit more. Like,
Sleeper look good. Yeah.
yeah, it looks like he's really settling into like this complete pitcher that can get you out in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, he led Major League Baseball in whiffs on Wednesday night. He had 20, and I think 10 of which came on the split, which shows you that guys are geared up for that low release, high vert fastball, and then they get the split and working off of the fastball beautifully. Those pair amazingly well. And showed it like was he awesome on Wednesday? Yeah. Has he been really good all year? Yeah. Now let me ask you. Was this more a testament to Imanaga and Pearson and Porter Hodge, or was this an indictment on one of the worst offenses in baseball? And I will tell you that the Pirates are bottom five in team OPS. They're bottom five in team slug. They have one of the five highest strikeout totals as a team. This offense looked overmatched all night long. And like put a lot of credit put a lot of credit to Shota on that. Like, don't get it twisted at all. He was no hit for 7 innings against a Major League Baseball team. But they looked so out of sorts and borderline checked out after Domingo Germán shit the bed. I also don't really understand that one at all. I'll put my hand up right now. He was not good in Indianapolis, and then he gets to Pittsburgh and he's not good. He's also clearly not a good guy. Why does that make any sense whatsoever? But dude, like this just felt like the Pirates were content with laying an egg by the fourth inning.
Yeah. Now it felt like they kind of expected to fall behind and then once they did, it's like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
And that's where they kind of seemed checked. But the other thing that was interesting is like Imanaga mixing in that sinker. And I think that was again because as pitchers are always or hitters are always game planning for that high fastball, and then now he's
Yeah.
working the bottom of the zone as well. I thought that really helped, but I think it's both. And I know that's kind of a cop out, but anything I think anytime you hold a major league lineup to 0 hits, no matter how frustratingly miserable that lineup is, like
You get all the credit in the world.
I watched Mackenzie Gore have be perfect through 5 1/3, and then Nick Fortes breaks it up with
Yeah.
triple. Like,
Yeah.
like they're major league hitters.
Right.
So
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the White Sox have gotten no hit yet this year.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, and like it's how easily things can snowball, right? Like Griff takes a good 3-2 pitch, and then Fortes ambushes a fastball. And like so the fact that Imanaga was able to stay on it, and lock in, it was big. But it also teams kind of check out a little bit more when they fall behind, and that was still a scoreless game when we're comparing it there. But yeah, I feel like this Pirates team is lifeless, and we were talking about GMs and managers that should be on the hot seat. And, Charrington, I know that Pirates fans are pretty critical and frustrated.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some things that you could look at with Charrington and say this ain't good. But I just made the case on the last episode that he should probably get one more year,
I
especially with
think
the
so.
pitching infrastructure that he's built. Like
Yeah.
he should get 1 year with Skeens, Jones, Chandler. And they have some potential on the offensive side. Like I think with what he's been able to do on the pitching side, he needs, to get another year here. And with what this team showed early, it's not like anybody was expecting this team to do anything. Like they
Right.
could pretty much limp to the finish line here and they'll kind of be right along the lines or maybe still even a little bit better than I think what the projections were. But I look at Shelton, man. I think that's the guy that may need to go. And when we talk about a GM that's trending towards the hot seat or a president of baseball operations trending towards the hot seat, generally that's when the manager goes because you got to
Yeah.
scapegoat somebody else. And then when things turn around, then you can kind of point towards that. Uh, but I don't even know if it's fully scapegoating because look, did they get good pieces at the deadline? Like, not really, but they didn't subtract. And when you, what was it, Brian De La Cruz, and did they trade for anyone else?
Isaiah Connor Falefa.
Oh, I mean, that's actually not a bad piece to add. So, not those aren't pieces that are going to put you over the top, but you are a team that was expecting to be depleted at the deadline going into the year, and you actually added two players.
Yeah.
You should be locked in down the stretch here and try to surprise people by hanging into the playoff race.
Yeah.
I felt like this team has quit pretty quickly, and
I
weeks
think
ago
so.
felt like they quit. And usually that's more of an indictment on the manager than anything else.
I think so. And just running through that lineup by OPS to show you like how underwhelming that lineup truly is. IKF, good pickup at the deadline, leading off with a 700 OPS. Two-man Brian Reynolds, your all-star, has an 805. Okay. The three-hitter, Nick Gonzalez, has a 682. The cleanup man, O'Neill Cruz, has a 780 OPS, and he has been much better against left-handed pitching as of late. Ben Charrington said on his weekly show that he essentially, along with a couple other members of the front office, had a quote-unquote, he used the word intervention with O'Neill Cruz. Hey, you need to be better against left-handed hitting, and he has been. However, he looked so overmatched against Imanaga. He went 0 for 4 with 2 Ks in that game. So O'Neill, the cleanup man, with a 780 OPS. Five hitting Connor Joe is 699. Six hitting Brian De La Cruz is 663. Seven hitting Jared Triolo of 598. Eight hitting Michael A. Taylor of 521. Nine hitting Henry Davis of 454. There's no juice. There's no energy in that lineup, like even on paper. And it's hard to find a lineup with no energy on paper. And you could say, well, O'Neill Cruz is electrifying. Sure. It's a 780.
Yeah.
Like, that's not all-star.
That's not the guy that you're relying to be the producer.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, he's the guy that has the chance to be their like
Right.
key producer. Kind of Falefa, like I liked the grab. I didn't like that they, considering that he's also under contract next year, and it's worth it considering the price of, I think utility types and things like that now.
Yeah.
They bought high on him, right? Like you gave up
Charles McAdoo.
Charles McAdoo.
Yeah.
And McAdoo has looked really good this year. He's been kind of one of the more exciting breakout prospects. But I think about where Connor Falefa was in the first time we talked about it. Like I issued an apology to the Blue Jays because, we really clowned that multi-year deal.
No
But
doubt.
also you do have to look at a player that, when they're 29 years old, have been around for a little bit, and they're having a really good first half. Like, is that right when you want to go get a guy? Like I like the pickup in a vacuum, but you had to also probably figure that he was going to taper off from there. Did you think that he was going to have a 595 OPS from the deadline onward? Probably not.
Probably.
But I just felt like this team was more than a Connor Falefa away. But I do also understand that he's probably going to slot right into shortstop next year, and you have a better feel for just kind of the roster situation in general. But like who would play shortstop next year anyways?
I mean, York's getting a little bit of run at short right now. That
So
tells
I
me the
guess
situation.
from that lens, the trade makes sense because they were
Yeah.
never going to sign like a Willie Adames or anything like that.
Right.
It's just, if that was your offensive piece to kind of jolt this team, like I told you, I told you when the trade happened that Brian De La Cruz wasn't going to do shit for them.
Right.
He doesn't defend either. So it's just like two guys that aren't going to make a huge impact. At least Connor Falefa is going to play great defense. So like that's why I still like the pickup is like he's going to pick it at short and not stink offensively. He's stunk lately, but I still feel like you can go into next year and say, okay, you're at least getting close to league average offense with good defense at short. The Pirates would take that any day of the week.
No doubt.
The De La Cruz thing makes no sense, and I know they didn't give up a
Makes no
ton,
sense.
but like we love what John Chuck Shim can be, and they threw in Garrett Forrester too. Like I'm not giving up a high upside 20-year-old pitching prospect that we just paid $750,000 to sign from South Korea for Brian De La Cruz. Like I couldn't believe that happened. And so those are the little things that I think people will start looking at Charrington. We talked
Hmm.
about the Brian Hayes thing, that extension and everything like that. But I also like at the time we all thought that was fine. Like he seemed like he was on that trajectory. So I think that there's a clear type of player that Charrington gravitates towards, aside from like the big ticket IFA guys that have developed, like O'Neal Cruz. Clearly values like the glove, and I get that. But like you gotta getting a guy that's bat doesn't compensate for his glove sucking like a Brian De La Cruz is not how you
Right.
fix that.
No.
I think Charrington needs to kind of get out of his comfort zone a little bit on the position player side because
I think so.
these kind of Falefa, Brian Hayes types, like
Yeah.
I think you need to go a different direction.
And dude, at the end of the day, like they have a pitching surplus that they can work from. And we saw Patrick Riley move. Riley, we were really impressed with in the spring breakout game. He started really well in high A. He moves for Billy Cook, who could very well be on that big league roster next year. You
He could
have
be on the big league roster right now.
right now. I think him and York can be on that big league roster right now. But you see, a guy like Hunter Barco, who's good. Does he factor into the long-term five? Even a guy that like might be a top 100 prospect in Thomas Harrington. I love watching Harrington throw. Is he your long-term five? If the answer is no, and you like what Luis Ortiz is doing right now instead, like that's a top 100 prospect that you can go move for a formidable bat and he can go thrive elsewhere, but you have to be okay with that because you need to trust yourself that you are going to get a good bat in return. So there are a lot of options here to work from that surplus that Charrington has built. But going back to your Shelton point, the last Pirate thing that I want to talk about, it was in his post-game media availability. And this is courtesy of Sportsnet Pittsburgh. I'm going to play the clip for you here on audio and on video. But this is him in his post-game media scrum being asked by Noah Hiles of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about using Rowdy Tellez in the eighth inning. Take a listen.
Was Rowdy in the eighth just because you guys don't have an off day anymore? I'm just trying to...
Yeah, come on, Noah. It's 11-0. It's 11-0. Bednar, Holderman, both threw yesterday. Santana's been our best reliever. Chapman, I'm not going to pitch in that situation. Come on, you've watched enough baseball to know that. It's 11-0. Seriously. No, you don't have to ask. There's a better question than that. Seriously. I mean, it's 11-0.
So I know you've got some thoughts on this. I've got some thoughts on it as well. That was very aggressive from Shelton. There's no doubt about it. I think the Pirates are really spoiled with their beat writers. I think Noah Hiles, Andrew Destin at the Post-Gazette, Alex Stumpf of MLB.com are phenomenal, phenomenal writers. Do I understand that this was a question that was going to elicit, without doubt, a negative response? Yes, absolutely. Now, counterpoint before you go. Since Rowdy Tellez's first pitching appearance of the season on August 24th, Rowdy Tellez in the last 2.5 weeks has thrown 3 times. David Bednar has thrown 4 times. Aroldis Chapman has thrown 4 times in that stretch. So Rowdy Tellez is almost called upon as often as your $10.5 million reliever in Aroldis Chapman and your 2-time All-Star, now former closer in David Bednar. I don't know if it's the perfect question to ask there, but it's a question that I think is fair game because he's called on Rowdy Tellez 3 times and they've run a position player out to the mound 3 times in the last 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, so what would be a normal answer to that question? Because I think that was too harsh. I'm just thinking like what, and I've been in like I also very much understand I couldn't fully understand what it's like to be on the beat every single day for a team that is really fading the way that it is. But I've covered plenty of games for bad teams where you're in that room and you don't even really know what to ask. You don't want to sugarcoat a stupid question. You don't want to ask something too harsh. You don't want to ask nothing. So it's a weird spot to be in, and he's probably been feeling that now. For
No doubt.
Probably weeks with the way things have trended. So sometimes you just get one off and it's maybe not your best. And it wasn't like it was asked in a rude way or pointed towards something else or critical of Shelton. So it didn't deserve the response that Shelton gave. And I think we see it kind of often and it makes sense. It just objectively, like I get it, especially even though we're on the media side, like it's pretty unnatural that right after a game, a very frustrating game, you have to go sit in front of people and they get to go ask you questions about the game that just pissed you off and is going to piss you off for a while your job may be on the line. You
Yeah.
got to just sit there and answer. But that comes with the job description. That's why you make a lot of money. But everyone has the I think deserves a little bit of leeway to have those moments.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that was. But I do wonder, like, what would be the answer that you're looking for to that question?
I think something similar to what Shelton said without the aggression. Is that fair?
I guess you could get some good quotes from that, right? Like, well, what do you want us to do? We're out of every single game. Why am I going to burn our best relievers who have thrown multiple times lately?
Exactly. And something like, we expect to be in a positive situation tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. So we're going to use our guys here. Like there is a coach speak gear that he can kick into there and hit cruise control. But that's a guy that was clearly agitated and took it out on someone when he didn't need to do that. And that is a tendency of somebody that is on the hot seat, if we're being honest. Like I remember my first coach interview I ever did was Phil Wedden, his name, and he was the women's soccer coach at Syracuse. And I was doing a game on ACC Network Extra, and we sat down. The first thing I asked was, hey, coach, with senior day coming up, I would love to hear a little bit about the seniors that you have on the team. And he said, I'm sorry, do you know our team at all? I was like, what do you mean? He said, how many seniors do we have? I said, you have two. He said, no, one of them is a graduate transfer. The other is a senior. We have one. You should do prep next time. And he got fired the next day. So I took that and I lost sleep that night because I was like, oh my God, I did a terrible job. And then he got fired the next day and I realized, oh my, it wasn't about me at all, huh?
No.
So
it rarely is. And that's in life too.
Yeah.
It's rarely about you when someone lashes out and someone's mean, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty crazy because I left
senior dude, shut up.
Yeah, I left shaking and Kristen, I love Kristen Hennessy over at she was at Syracuse. I'm not sure where she's at now, but Kristen was like, that's not you. That's not you. I was like, thanks, I appreciate that. But no, I mean that's the energy you get from somebody that's really feeling it. And, I don't know what the rest of the season entails. He signed an extension last year. So, we'll see what happens on that front. But it's just fascinating to me, man. Fascinating.
Yeah. Who would have thought the story would trend this way this quickly? But that's why the season's a marathon, man.
Yeah. It's crazy. We got to jump to Matt Chapman here, who Matt Chapman is the recipient.
NBA money.
Yeah, right. He's got that big Bismack Biyombo cash. Is that what that is now?
Got that Timothy Mozgov bag.
Timothy Mozgov. Matt Chapman of the Giants for Jeff Passan in agreement on a 6-year, $151 million extension. Per Passan wipes out the final 2 years of his current deal, keeps Chapman from opting out. The deal starts next year. It'll be when he's 32 years old and runs through the 2030 season. So that's his age 32 through 37 seasons for Chapman. It comes on top of the $20 million he earned, replaced by the extension. So in essence, he just got 6 years, 171 from the San Francisco Giants. Is it a good deal for 31-year-old Matt Chapman? Yeah. Is it a good deal for 36-year-old Matt Chapman? Probably not. You're paying for dead years here. And I feel like we always say that with long-term deals. With 6-year deals, I don't find myself saying that often. But that's what you get for extending a guy who's on the other side of 30, who was a platinum glove level defender, who is a gold glove caliber, or at least flirting with a gold glove caliber defender still. But defense falls off quicker than pop does.
Yeah. Yeah, and they both fall off, and those are the two things that he is predicated on, right? It's pop and defense. I will say, seems like this year he has got himself right, though. And not just from a statistical perspective in terms of the surface level numbers, which are great. And, people might look at the OPS and say, oh, well, it's only up 24 points. Remember the environment that he's in as well, too. It is, I think, even more impressive that he's doing that in San Francisco. And that's why, this year with the defense also ticking up too, this is where I actually do look a little bit more at Savant because Savant is, I think one of the better ways to use Savant is to see how a player is or is not declining, because those are the metrics that you can really look at and say, okay, like age is slowing him down, his sprint speed slowing down, his bat speed slowing down. Like those are the measurables that you can kind of like see a little bit more. Whereas, average exit velocity is going down, chase is going up, etc. We always talk about like my least favorite thing in the world is just like you get a 25-year-old in like his second season, they just screenshot the Savant page and it's like, look at this.
Bubbles. He's gushing.
He's gushing blood.
Gushing blood.
Yeah. Like,
He's frozen. So blue.
Yeah, like you didn't even pick those metrics, and like it's a whole other story. But Chapman looks as good as he's ever looked, or at least as good as he's looked since like the prime like breakout years that we saw from him. Even when you look at sprint speed, this dude's in the 86th percentile in sprint speed. Remember that what was I believe to be, and it lines up with the timeline. He was dealing with a hip issue, and he tried to play through it a little bit. Then he got surgery for it, and I thought there were some residual effects there. I mean, hip can affect, 1, your power, 2, your fielding. Think about it. You're moving laterally. You got to get down there. Like I can't even get into a ready position anymore. And then also just sprinting. So like I imagine that now, like a couple years removed from that, maybe he's kind of figured out how to get his body right now, how to get his body to work in the right way. I think it looks like, at least to me, that he's as fresh as he has looked since his, top seasons. Maybe that was enough for the Giants to say, hey, let's give him a long-term deal. The flip side is everything that you said is like, okay, you get 2 or 3 years where I feel pretty good about it. After age 33, for a guy that needs to be defensive oriented and slug,
Getting really nervous, man.
I'm interested to see how it ages, but
Yeah.
it's not like they're giving him off the charts money. Like,
You're right.
I know it seems crazy, but I think in terms of AAV, did you mention what that comes out to?
No, 161 over 6. Is that right? Or 151 over 6?
I believe it
Is 151 over 6.
Okay.
It is 25 a year.
Like, that's not bad. Like,
It's not bad.
Offers 21.
Yeah, it's not bad. Does this also sort of kind of tell you that the Giants might be waving the white flag on the big ticket guys? Like they are out of the Soto sweepstakes? That's kind of what that tells me.
Yeah, and I think it's because they probably feel like they got no shot. Well, think about who Matt Chapman's agent is too. So, they might have even talked to Boris about it and said, hey, like we're interested in Soto, but like,
Yeah, no, I think you should allocate your funds towards Matt.
I think you should allocate your funds over here, mate. But like, I don't think Soto doesn't seem like there's, unless it's the Dodgers, it wouldn't make much sense for him to go all the way to the West Coast. I just can't really see it.
No.
So, yeah, I think that is a big part of it, but this is a good building block for them moving forward. Like this team, we've talked about it, like is not that far off with, if they're able to retain Blake Snell. Clearly, the Robbie Ray edition was not a bad one at all. He looks like he can throw for them. They've got some things to figure out on the infield, but I think this was huge to be able to get him on the left side when they're still trying to figure out shortstop. They're still trying to figure out, I think, pretty much the rest of the infield overall.
Do you see what the at least planned answer at second base is?
No.
Marco Luciano.
Dude, are they going to just keep pretending that he's an answer to something in different ways?
Yes.
Like the problem is not whether it's short or second; it's whether it hit or not.
It's whether big leaguer or a river cat. Yeah.
Okay. Well, give him the run the rest of the way. Like I'm here for it, but like, I mean, at this point, I guess for the rest of this year they'll let Wisely play short and and Tyler Fitzgerald and go from there. But like, even Tyler Fitzgerald, like it's been awesome. We were just talking about how he's been one of the biggest surprise rookies and everything. Like,
but is it a flash in the pan?
Can you go into next year and say, hey, Tyler Fitzgerald's our guy? Like he's gonna if Tyler Fitzgerald is back to the Tyler Fitzgerald that we kind of were used to seeing, or kind of expecting the last few years, which is more of a bench part-time player. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe something really clicked here.
Yeah.
Then you're screwed because you don't have another option. Then you're back to Marco Luciano and then hoping Tyler Fitzgerald or Brett Wisely or whatever. Like Fitzgerald's still striking out 30% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Woba, ex-Woba guy, but you got to be when it's 380 to 310 and it's a breakout player.
Right.
Like, and again, I hate doing this because I think this is awesome. and I'm so here for this Tyler Fitzgerald 3.5 win season.
Yeah.
But if I'm in charge of this roster, there's no way I can bank on a Tyler Fitzgerald follow up, especially when we're talking about some of the best, most talented young players in baseball having sophomore slumps.
Right.
So, like, I would even just like to go get into Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, to be honest. Like, that would be great.
So
Like, those types of players, they're going to need to find some options there. But all that to say, having third base locked down, I think, is absolutely huge for this ball club. I am buying the Elliot Ramos breakout, like every metric you look at there. And if you just look at the swing, like, that's clear. He's a dude. Like, you have some of those pieces there. I love where the pitching's at. Of course, Patrick Bailey's a guy. So I'm all for locking up another position for the next few years. And here's the reality of it. Zaidi doesn't care about year 5 or 6.
No,
He's trying to survive the next 2.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's all about right now.
Yeah. And I will say this is, I think, time number 2 that I've firmly stamped that I think the best fit for Willy Adames this offseason is the San Francisco Giants. If they take care of the left side of the infield and they have Pat Bailey behind the plate, you have 3 very high-level defenders there at catcher, third, and short. That's where I want 3 high-level defenders if I can point them out on the infield. Hell, in the field in general. They can handle center field. And I know that that is a spacious outfield. They've got guys that can maneuver that no problem, I think. But if they can hammer down maybe the best defender behind the plate in all of baseball, I almost want to say it's inarguable at this point. I feel like there are some guys that would factor into the conversation. It's like, oh, I've got this guy on line 1, but Pat Bailey is there, man. He is absolutely there. Third base, you have the pedigree of Matt Chapman. Adames is damn good. And oh, by the way, he is your threat to hit 30 homers. You didn't see it resolved in Jorge Soler. He's not the first guy since Bonds to have a 30-homer season. Adames could be that guy if he plays a 162 and he's up.
That's a real stat.
Yeah, I think the Giants haven't had a 30-homer season since Bonds.
No way.
Yeah, I remember when Soler signed, we had that conversation.
Why did that one go over my head? That's the craziest.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I don't think it's wrong.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. That's one of those like incredible but believable, but also not believable stats. We're also not mentioning like Jung Hoo Lee, getting hurt. I mean, that's another guy that can really go get it in center. Is just a great ball player, and I still think that he's really gonna be a good piece for them too. So you've got the building block in center, you get the building block at third. You can go spend it short, and you know what? I think Fitzgerald has proven that he's a big leaguer. But like, if you are penciled in with Tyler Fitzgerald at second, and then he disappoints a little bit, then you can platoon him with Wisely and have this productive. They love to platoon out there. Have this productive platoon, and I mean, this is combining AAA and the bigs, but he's mostly been in the bigs pretty much the entire year. Tyler Fitzgerald against lefties this year has an OPS over 1,000. So like, that's the fallback, right? Like, that's the way I would want to build a roster. It's like, okay, I don't want to just relegate this guy after he earned, an everyday look next year, clearly. But instead of, hey, you're our everyday shortstop, which, I think he's even stretched thin there a little bit defensively. Like, you're at second base. We think you can be our everyday guy there. And if he struggles, okay, now you're platooning with a Wisely or with somebody else. And, you're getting a lot of production out of that position. Then I'm feeling really good about where they're at. They're going to clear some money off as well, right? I think Conforto's off the books, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, with what Birdsong has flashed this year, like a Webb, Snell, if they can bring him back, Robbie Ray, if he can just stay healthy, and it's a hamstring thing right now. And you'd think his hamstring would be fine with the compression pants that he wears, but I guess it doesn't work. And just the entire bullpen and, Jordan Hicks there, like they've got so many options, like on the pitching side. I really do think that a couple additions around here, like they could be really solid for the next couple years. And are you a little bit annoyed on the last year or two of Matt Chapman's contract? Maybe, but he's still going to have enough, I think, run into home run power that like, that's probably going to be the new QO by the time he's done, which like still might be a little expensive for a guy on the back end there, but it won't be bad by any stretch. So I thought it was pretty good. And I also think, to kind of pivot to another aspect of this conversation, what does this mean for an Alex Bregman? Is Alex Bregman's getting more than that, right?
I think this might have made Alex Bregman a $200 million player.
Ooh. So let's think about it. Bregman, a little bit younger. He's 30 and a half.
Yeah.
I feel like you stopped doing that after like 8 years old, but he's 30 and a half. And I think even this new Bregman, that's not the 8-win Bregman that we saw in 2018, 2019, then he really struggled in 21, right? And then they were like, oh my gosh, like what is he at this point? He was kind of hurt that year. And now I think we've clearly seen that he's a 4-win player pretty much every single year. And like we saw that in 2022, he was a 5-win player. And 2023, he was 4.5. This year he's 3.5. But I still think you look at a lot of the numbers; they look solid overall. It's been a little bit of a struggle to get on base this year, which has been interesting. But I just don't think it really matters, right? He's above average offensively, above average defensively. He's just consistently solid. He's one of the better postseason performers. If you look at just, all of these Astros guys are.
Yeah.
Like, he's safer. But my concern, what's safer in terms of the track record of hitting?
Yeah.
But do you think teams are at all going to be concerned about a change in environment? Because this kind of segues into the similar conversation we had with Isaac Paredes. But the difference is with Bregman, like he's been wearing out those Crawford boxes for a while. Like his swing's geared for that. So that's my one thing. Do you think teams are a little bit wary of that?
Yes.
Or does he go out and he gets close to 200?
No, I think the answer is yes, teams are wary of it, but I think the rebuttal is you haven't seen me do this. Like you haven't given me the opportunity to negate your thought here. And that is the ultimate clapback. And what are teams going to say? But we've seen the spray charts. It's like, okay, well, you haven't seen my home ballpark be somewhere else.
Exactly. What's Bregman like? The great counter argument is just going to be, well, what am I not supposed to hit it there?
Yeah. Like, do you want me to not? Yeah. Like I've done something so many times that I'm near perfect at it and I'm as good at it as anybody in baseball. So I might as well just keep doing that.
And he doesn't whiff. I like, it's interesting. I think it's almost going to be the same contract.
You think so? I think the year of age helps him, and the offensive production and the offensive consistency helps him a lot too, where it might bump him and a team might get crazy. I do think that a team is going to get crazy and give him $200 million.
I do have more confidence in Bregman aging well. Like I think even at like 37.
Because 37-year-old Bregman could just turn into
halfway player still.
He could turn into Yuli Gurriel, dude. He could just slap the ball around the ballpark and hit 320 with singles.
He's 98th percentile in whiff and chase is always been low for him. So and he's still super rangy. Like he could end up being a second baseman that still just like slaps the ball around the yard. So I could see him getting like that 7th year.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's at a slightly lower or the same AAV, and all of a sudden you're pushing closer to that 200 mark. So I mean, he's also a Boris guy, right?
Bregman is a Boris guy.
Yeah, so I think Boris has got to be excited looking at that and saying, all right, well, I didn't just get this deal for Chap. I've also set a really nice baseline for Alex Bregman.
Yep, no doubt. Yes or no questions to wrap here in a moment. Before that, one quick break. Okay, I've got some questions. 2 of them I think are yes and no, and 2 of them are a little bit broader for you, but they have to do with 4 individuals. Ben Joyce, Wyatt Langford, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Sale. The first one is the Ben Joyce question. Are we going to see this guy hit 106 miles an hour? It's a yes or no question. And the broader question is, if not him, who is going to be the guy that hits 106? Ben Joyce got a punch out on 105.5. It was the hardest track pitch for a strikeout in the pitch tracking era. Has to be the hardest of all time. I don't care what you heard.
No. Nolan Ryan threw in 108, and Bob Feller, when the motorcycle, we timed it up, the motorcycle threw the paper, it's faster, they threw faster.
That's crazy. His nickname was Rapid Robert, so he had to throw harder than the volunteer fireman. Holy shit. Sick nickname, but 105.5, because we don't have the firm data point, that's the hardest pitch ever thrown for a strikeout. Yes or no? Do you think Joyce hits 106?
It's a great question. This becomes like a physics and like anatomy and biology question more than a baseball
and
question.
I haven't read it yet, but I saw Eno Saris did a dive.
Yeah.
Athletic, and it's how fast can the human body produce a fastball? Walker
had some good quotes in that. By the way, Walker again, maybe look out. He's thrown well. I know you guys may have talked about it, but I just wanted to say, like second TJ, these guys had battled through so many things. There's a reason why Walker was quoted in that story.
Right.
Walker is known and respected as one of the smartest pitching minds out there.
Yeah.
Even if Walker had to reinvent himself a little bit from what he used to be, you didn't think a guy that smart was going to be able to do that? Like,
Right.
he's altered his pitch usage a little bit. He's locating differently, and he's succeeding because he's still throwing 90 freaking 596.
Right.
So, to that point, like there's some high level, I think, discussion and thoughts on that, and I believe that the conversation is yes, like the right guy can do it. And I think there's almost a tipping point of like, do you want to put your body through that? Like, I don't know if we have much like swing and miss. What's the average whiff rate on 106 versus 105?
We don't know.
I don't know, but I think he will. I think he'll get one because you know what? I don't know him. I've never met Ben Joyce in my life, but just looking at him, and I feel like all those guys at Tennessee, like I feel like all of them just would go in the bullpen and just try to throw harder than each other. Like that's just what I imagine. Like or like every game. I'm pretty sure Joyce. Like I know he likes usually just kind of naturally turns around, but like I think after that last strikeout, he turned around just to look exactly at the radar gun.
Yeah.
Like that reminds me of like my teammates at Perfect Game, like blew their arms out at all.
Yeah. It's like, oh shit, bro, I hit 89.
Yeah, guy gives up 5 earned, comes in the dugout like, yo, did you see what I hit that inning? I was like, no, I was
then
watching
Miami
the
comes
merry-go-round, dude.
Right. And then Miami comes up and it's like, hey, I don't care that you walked 6 guys in a row.
That's the craziest part, dude. It's the craziest part. I see this guy walk 6, he hits 90, and she sends an email to a couple ACC teams, and he's on a fucking visit to Miami the next week. It's crazy. I'm not even making that up. That actually happened.
Yes.
So no, but back to the main point. I do think he can do it. And remember, this we told you on this show when Joyce came back up that it was a different Ben Joyce. We found it again, and I think finding it was beyond mechanically being able to throw strikes. It was also mechanically being able to get the most out of his body. Usually those two things can go together. And I think he has gotten back to where he was at Tennessee, and now he's just a bigger and stronger version of that. But I think he had dealt with some ailments in the early parts of his pro career, and as you know, like you have some of those ailments, then your release starts to change a little bit, and then you start losing maybe the same feel for your pitches, and sometimes not even throwing the ball as hard. Seems like he's gotten back to that. His mechanics look clean, and he's a freak. So I do think he can touch 106, and I also think that as long as he's healthy, knock on wood, this is I hate to say building block because he's a reliever, but this is a fantastic piece for the Angels, excuse me. Sorry, what's the difference? And I do think that this could be one of the more appointment television type of pitchers. So I'm glad that the Angels have a guy like that. And I just hope he can stay healthy because, again, we just don't have much precedent on this kind of thing except for Chapman, who's been a bulldog.
Right. And my thing on Joyce is, and the reason that I believe that he is the guy that's going to hit 106 miles an hour, and I don't know if we have another guy that is going to do that. There's a chance that Yohan Duran continues to lean into the closer thing and reaches levels that we haven't seen because he's a massive, massive human being. And hell, like there could be a guy. I remember Riley Pint hit 104 when he was in high school, right? Like,
yeah, those are the ones I actually don't buy. Those are like the Nolan Ryan radar gun ones to me.
And they're the lank machines and they're whippy as shit. And like, you feel like it's not going to work.
Oh, that. And like, I feel like they just had some like bullshit.
They might lie.
Yeah. Tyler Kolek hit like 103 or whatever. And like now the Marlins brass after that, we're like, oh, maybe that was a hot gun. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
$5+ million in this guy. Oh, maybe it was a hot gun. What? Anyway,
Correct. No, but Joyce is cut from a different cloth. I think he's cut from closer to the Chapman cloth. And yes, they're both physical specimen. Like Chapman, it's crazy to see that lower body. Aroldis Chapman, like you saw it, dude. It is freakish.
We talk about like the coil with hitters.
Right.
That is the elite coil before he goes. And that's where all the power comes from. Like,
that's where all
honestly,
the power
I gotta
comes
use that
from.
as an example for a hitting conversation. Like people ever like doubt what we're talking about when you like coiling into the backside. Look at Aroldis Chapman, the most powerful thrower that we've had of our generation. Like That is the definition of coil.
It's all coil, dude. It's not that arm. Like, obviously, the arm has something to do with it, but look at that guy's lower half and look at the way that he drives and coils. That's where 105 comes from. With Joyce, look at the way he gets down on the mound, dude, and look at the torso swing in his delivery. Like, there is everything. The arm is a complementary piece to what he's doing on the mound. If he continues to fine tune his body, and he's already a physical specimen, I think that this guy from the legs and the core can get to 106 miles an hour. It has not, again, like that's hyperbolic. It has something to do with the arm, but relatively speaking, it has nothing to do with the arm because it's all about the legs and the torso. And those guys are two of the best movers in bullpens that we have.
100%. And that also is that's what preserves the arm, right? And I think that's a big reason why Chapman has been able to do this. Like we talked about it when Chapman stalled out a little bit. I think that was the arm
Yeah.
naturally and just the body naturally aging. So he leaned even more into the lower half and how
He
he
got
could get
back to the drive. Yeah.
every ounce of his lower half involved. And I think Joyce is subscribing to the same thing. These guys, these hard throwers, like they're some of the big, like, yeah, people, and that's the funny thing is, and I think it's applicable at times, but people love to talk about, oh, these guys are throwers, not pitchers now and whatever. But like these hard throwers, like a Ben Joyce, they may study the body as much as anybody
Yeah.
and the way that it moves. And maybe it's not in the name of hitting your spots as much as it
No,
is.
they have one goal in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it's throw it as hard as you can. But it's also can I do that while staying in the zone? Obviously, it's hard to do both to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But the fact that Joyce is already getting 6.8, 6.9 feet of extension,
Yeah.
like he's getting down there, like you said. So that also makes it nuts because it's 102, 103, 104, 105
Mhm.
from what another almost half foot closer.
Yeah.
Craziness. So I'm excited to see what this guy can continue to do. It's just, it sucks being a closer on a team that's never in the lead.
Right.
But, this is another piece. Good pick. They rushed him, and this is the kind of guy that you can rush. So
No doubt.
I think it worked out pretty nicely.
No doubt. Next question has to do with another guy in the American League West, and it has to do with Wyatt Langford. Langford has had a hell of a 4-game stretch in the month of September. This comes off of a July where he had a 631 OPS and an August where he had a 624 OPS. In September, 4 games, he's 7 for 16 with 2 doubles and 2 homers, one of which was a walk-off grand slam on Tuesday night. So my question, as it pertains to Wyatt Langford, is this. 112 games. He's got a 248 clip, 10 homers, 62 driven in, a 706 OPS. What does 2025 look like for Wyatt Langford?
I thought you were going to ask me, it was 2024 positive or negative?
Answer that.
Oh, no, because I was hoping you wouldn't.
Yeah, but like when you pose a hard question, you know you're going to have to try and answer it.
I'd say that it could be defined in the next 20 games.
Yeah.
Or however many games are left. And that's not even as a cop out because I like he could legitimately finish the year with a 110 WRC plus. And I think having the struggles, overcoming that on the other side as a rookie with a team that, had struggled across the board and, he battled with some minor little ailments. Like I think it would be a slight positive, but kind of a neutral. And it's more because he set the bar so high for himself with what he did last year. And we always talk about it like guys' learning curves can hit at different spots. And clearly, like, Wyatt Langford's learning curve hit in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of same thing with like CJ Abrams and some other players where they were just so good in the minor league so quickly. Maybe they weren't fully ready for the show and they could have hit some struggles with more minor league games as even AAA pitchers would have adjusted. But Langford was so good. It was like, why even wait for that to happen? And, he can help that team. So, I think to answer that, I'd say it's slight positive. Like this is a guy that's played maybe even a little bit more than that. Like had played 40 professional games and then is fully thrown into the fold as the defending champ, and wearing that. So I thought the fact that he held his own and now is finishing really strong. If he finishes really strong over these next few weeks, it's a positive. But next year, I don't want to because we'll do this right where a guy has a big second half and then maybe we overestimate how that carries over into the next year. I think CJ Abrams actually an example of that last year.
Yeah.
And he's had a fine year. He started really well, but has really stalled out. I think I'm going to do it with Wyatt too though, because I think he's that freaking good. I think it's a monstrous season next year. I think it's 30 homers next year. I think we start to see him look like that that young, not fully, because I think it's a really high bar to set, but I think he starts to look like that young Paul Goldschmidt, where it starts to all come together, where you're seeing the tools shine through, and you start to see, like I think a lot of that talent shine through. And is it 2013 Paul Goldschmidt who had a 6-win season,
Yeah.
and hit 36? I don't think so. But is it maybe 2012 Paul Goldschmidt, who was 24 years old and had a 3-win season, 20 homers? I think in 18 bags, 124 WRC plus. I think it's a little bit better than that. So like I think it's in between those two. So I think it's going to be kind of that mid-20s Paul Goldschmidt that starts to bud into that superstar that we saw from him. Like that is what I kind of see from Langford, and I think the big X factor from a WAR perspective and things like that's going to be the defense. But it seems like the defense is getting better. It's never going to be great, but it's getting better. So that does help.
I have incredibly high hopes for him, and I'm with you. I think that year 2 could be monstrous from him because year 1 was, at this point, like if the season ended today, I'm going to play that game. I'd call it slightly negative. I'd say he's slightly underwhelmed. If he lived up to the billing, I would just assume a little bit of a sophomore slump, like we've seen from a Corbin Carroll, because that's what happens to really, really good players. Gunnar was the rookie of the year. He was the unanimous American League rookie of the year. But his season compared to Carroll's, I don't necessarily think it was close last year. I thought Carroll, ran laps around Gunnar Henderson last year.
Well, because Gunnar had his learning curve a little bit more.
Gunnar had his curve.
Tough stretch.
And he still won Rookie of the Year because it was a weak class, and Gunnar was still really good. But Gunnar was, quote unquote, disappointing relative to expectations, I think, for Gunnar Henderson. He was disappointing, and he levels up this year, and he looks like an MVP candidate. Carroll was exceeding expectations, looked like a top 10, top 15 player in all of baseball, and he underwhelms in year 2. I think with Langford underwhelming, quote unquote, in year 1, he can level up to be that monster in 2025 in year 2. I think it's very similar to Gunnar Henderson, where it's like it's a good, not great season. Gunner's was obviously a lot better.
Gunner's was really good. Like he ended up. I'm trying to remember now. Like, was it how he came out of the gate? I just remember
it was how he came out of the gate. Yeah, he struggled out of the gate,
and he struck out a little bit more than he thought, but he still somehow put together a 4.5 win season.
Right.
So it was better than Wyatt, but at the same time, he also had so much more minor league runway, and was able to kind of, I think, build a little bit more momentum into that debut. But I do agree with what you're saying, and Carroll was just on a different level because of what he did in the postseason, and just helping kind of lead them to the World Series. And I know Carroll hit a little bit of a snag down the stretch there, but it was so freaking dominant. Like we're talking MVP candidate, and he was a pick. He was a pick to win MVP this year. Right? People, I think Peter would like that one, and Peter's nailed just about every single one of his preseason, bets and predictions. And I even liked the Corbin idea of him being an MVP. We didn't quite say that with Gunnar. We said, oh, he's going to be a really solid player, probably another close to 5-win season. And they're both amazing. But I do agree that I think Langford kind of got his sophomore slump front loaded here, where I think he made the adjustment he needed to make. Pitchers already kind of knew how they want to go after him and things like that, and they did it and they executed it, and then he has adjusted back since. And I think we're seeing over the last 20 games, he's not chasing, he's making more contacts, he's driving the ball hard to all fields. It seems like he's settling in now. And remember, this guy's just 22, despite not playing that many minor league games at all.
I think Langford has gotten that out of the way. I think Jackson Chourio got that out of the way. I think Chourio is
another one that I don't expect a sophomore slump with Chourio.
No, at all.
You see the curve for him here. Another guy that kind of fast tracked, struggled, and I think has been able to work through that as well. And I think that's the interesting part of this. It's not just that predictable with development. It can be a bunch of different ways where guys have that learning curve and that adjustment period. And I think that's the fun and interesting part of this thing. Who did Langford hit that walk-off grand slam off of again?
Oh, man. You know it.
Yes, I do. Clay Holmes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw a very funny tweet. Holmes, in his post-game availability, I think called it a learning experience after his 11th blown save. And Boone said that
first 10 times.
Yeah, so somebody quote tweeted it, sure, a Yankees fan said, this guy should be a fucking rocket scientist by now with how much learning he's done, how many learning experiences he's had.
Oh, Yankees fans are funny, man. So I'll say this: Holmes, elite reliever, and he actually really does generate a really fun conversation that I think we can have in another episode.
Yeah.
But I had a couple replies because, like, maybe just maybe the Yankees should consider, maybe rotating that closer role a little bit. And got a couple replies from like those like accounts that are going to be very like analytically driven. And I think it's very clear if you listen to the show, I'm quite analytically driven, and
Right.
I do agree that there's not like I don't think there's like a art to a save. Like I don't think there's guys that are like specifically just like built to be able to save games more than others. But I
Yeah.
do think that there's players who can struggle to save games more than others. So I know that almost sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but the point being is like it's not, oh, this guy has okay stuff, but he's incredible in the ninth. I
Yeah.
think he can go the other way. This guy has really good stuff, but he doesn't handle the ninth well. And any player will tell you that the ninth is just a different beast. The
Yeah.
thing is, most of these guys have such good stuff, and most of these guys are such animals that like a lot of the seventh and eighth inning guys can plug into the ninth and go shut it down because
Right.
you've talked to relievers all the time. Every reliever, because you're taking usually a failed starter, putting him in a 1 inning spurt. They're seeing their stuff tick up. They're K'ing guys like crazy. They think they're the shit, and they're right. They're disgusting. All relievers are disgusting. So they feel like 1 inning, good luck, and they're right to feel that way.
Yeah.
Most high leverage relievers are confident in themselves as closers. I'm not saying Holmes isn't confident in himself as a closer, but clearly there's some sort of disconnect there where when he gets in the ninth, where he just if he starts to get in a tough spot, just doesn't execute well. He kind of leaves it over the middle. Like there's so many meatballs that get crushed, or
Mhm.
he just seems to back himself into spots. Also, I don't love my closers getting ground balls more than strikeouts, and I just don't like those types of closers as well.
Yeah, the rebuttal to that one, real quick, is Class A, who's Kang fewer than a hitter per inning, but at the end of the day, like Class A throws 102, and
Yeah, and I also think
comparing
Classic is kind
on
of an
anybody.
outlier where like just the contact quality is so bad. Like
So
so bad because of how insane his stuff is. But that is a good pushback there because I did get a couple replies like you weren't saying this about Class A like last year. It's like yeah, but like Clay Holmes didn't have a 1.33 in the previous like
right,
130 innings. Like and he's not 25. Like Clay Holmes is 31. And like I think he's an elite reliever, right? He gets a higher ground ball rate than I think anybody in baseball.
yeah,
But when you have a fastball that still can get like hit hard at times,
yeah,
and I mean, opponents are hitting 336 against his sinker. Like, that's a really tough bill for a
no
closer. A
doubt.
closer needs to have a fastball that gets whiffs or I think a slider that you can throw more than 25%. And the thing is, he's got the slider, he's got the sweeper. I don't know. I think you got to have a fastball that's more swing and miss, or at least gets weaker contact than what
Yeah,
he gets. I know it's on the ground, but I don't love that closer template. And I
yeah,
think that's more the issue. I don't think Clay Holmes is like some mental midget that can't handle it. I think it's more just he's kind of pitched to contact, and that contact can be hard at times. And it's just not really the archetype for a closer. And then now I do think it's starting to get into his head. I'm just bringing this up because it was a really interesting rebuttal that I got from a few different people that are like, oh, saves are a completely arbitrary stat. I think they can generally be arbitrary, but I think when you are blowing 28% of your saves and you've had more than 30 opportunities, I do
yeah,
think you need to look at maybe the fact that he might not be built for it. He's definitely not the guy you want when he's inheriting a runner in 10th.
right.
So easy to move him over to third and then go from there. I don't know. I think it's a fun conversation to have in the offseason about like which stats are more arbitrary and which ones are not. And I think generally it is arbitrary, but I think in certain spots you got to look at the pitcher and say, hey, is he built for this spot consistently? You can still go in and get saves, but I just think consistently contact oriented. Remember, you have Jazz Chisholm at third base who's been holding it down, but like
Yeah,
you have Jazz Chisholm at third
this
base,
is
you have
new.
Gleyber Torres at second base. Like it's not like you've got the best defensive infield in Major League Baseball either.
Right.
I know Volpe's great, but that's another wrinkle in this thing too. And they had Ben Rice at first, who's held it down fine, but he's not Anthony Rizzo, who is back. But like, I don't know, it's a fun conversation to have. But I just think the Yankees should start to entertain the idea of rotating that role. And they've got a ton of wipeout guys. They got
And
a
they
ton of
are.
guys that can go get it.
Yeah, and they are. And Boone said they're going to quote get creative with the closer role. So, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of opportunities Clay Holmes is put into and what kind of opportunities other guys are put into. Quick two guys to wrap us up. Next one has to do with Kyle Schwarber, who had a 3-homer game on Tuesday. Kyle Schwarber, like every time you check, dude, he's doing exactly what you ask of him. Kyle Schwarber hit a buck 97 last year, but had 47 homers. This year, he's hitting 248 with an 853 OPS, and he's got 32 homers, including those three on Tuesday in Toronto, drove in six. Yes or no question about Schwarber. Is he the microwave player of Major League Baseball? We talk microwave shooters in basketball all the time where guys just get really hot and they dominate a quarter. I think Schwarber is that guy. I think Schwarber is not J.R. Smith, because J.R. Smith, the joke about him is volume, but like there are guys that go unconscious for a minute. Klay Thompson is, I think, the best example where he can put up 30 and a quarter. I think that's Schwarber, where, obviously June is amazing to him. His career in June, he might be OPSing 3,000 at this point, but Schwarber, like, it just feels like when he's on, he can carry the Philadelphia Phillies, which is so cool because he is offensive option number 4 or 5 in that lineup.
And he's been so much more complete this year. We talked about it, right? Like where getting him out of the outfield consistently, like how that could just help him be a more consistent.
Amazing.
He's hitting 248.
Yeah, dude.
371 OBP. And yeah, it's going to be less homers this year. He's slugging more though. 482 slug versus 474.
Yeah.
It's a 3-win season for a guy that's mostly, DHing. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So no, I do think he's the microwave guy in Major League. I don't know if I can think of another guy that's more like that. Jorge Mateo has had a couple microwave stretches, but it's not consistent enough, like in terms of every year.
Right.
Because we've been seeing this for years now with Schwarber. So no, I do think he's the microwave guy. Like there's just a stretch where like if you leave one and remotely
he's going to murder you.
It's gone. It's absolutely gone.
Yeah. I think like Randy is another name that jumped to my mind.
Randy's the other one.
Randy's the other one, but like for some reason, Schwarber's, and it's not for some reason, like Schwarber's been around longer. He's just done it many more times than Rosarena has at this point.
Too, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Randy's is always like a postseason thing for the most part. Like
it's a big moment thing. Like when the microwave is being turned on versus like Schwarber, it's like, oh, he just got one. He might hit 3 more today.
Yeah. Aside from June, like there's stretches like right now where it's like, oh, okay, he hit 2. Okay, this might be a crazy month. That's a different level of microwave, I think.
Yeah. Last but not least is Chris Sale. It's a simple question. He had a shutout start against Colorado at home earlier this week. He is now minus 2,500 to win the National League Cy Young, according to our friends at BetMGM. Does he have the National League Cy Young on lock?
According to our friends at BetMGM, yes.
How about you?
Yeah, I think that thing's a wrap. I can't believe it, man. He's going to throw, 175? 180 innings?
I think 180.
180 innings. You know the last time he's thrown 180 innings?
I think it's when he was in the jersey that he cut up, right?
No, he got 1 in with Boston. 214. That was that 7.5 win season. 2.9 ERA with better underlying with Boston in 17. But yeah, when he cut up the 226 and 2/3 innings in 2016, like he was never able to stay healthy after that for the most part. So like I think people are really going out of their way to clown the Red Sox for that trade. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Red Sox should be clowned. I don't think Breslow should be clowned. Like I think he clearly wanted a clean slate and everything. It optically is very tough when Chris Sale goes to win the Cy Young and Vaughn Grissom has just not been available at all this year. Yeah. The one thing I do want to say is he probably didn't need to pay his whole salary. The fact that, the Braves have the Cy Young winner for free, essentially, this year, that might be one of the let's just more focus on Anthopoulos. Is this up there? And I know it, again, kind of sounds like a contradiction, but I understand why the Red Sox did it for a lot of reasons, especially with the tight budgets that you got to work with. And if I'm taking over that team, like, why would I want all of my money tied up with a guy that's thrown, like 50 innings in the last 2 years, and then finally threw 100 innings at a 4.3 ERA before I took over if I'm Breslow.
Yeah.
Is that one of the best trades we've seen in a long time from Alex Anthopoulos?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think there's any question about it.
16-3.
What
records suck? I know, whatever. 16-3.
Yeah, but 16-3. Like, what else would be up there?
Where are the Braves without this man?
Outside looking in, no doubt about that.
So it's a wrap, right? He's got it. It's over.
It's a wrap. I
What does
will
he have to do? Could he get racked for 4 starts?
and Wheeler needs to have 4 scoreless starts to end his year.
Well, he's got one down already
Yeah,
on Saturday.
I think so. Yeah,
More ones on Saturday. That'll be
Nostradamus.
yeah.
I don't see a world where he relinquishes this. And I will also say, last thing on Sale, the hardware will solidify the Hall of Fame case. He finished top 5 in Cy Young voting 6 consecutive years.
Yeah.
I think if he gets one, he's in.
Beyond that, I think is he the ultimate Cy Young this year? Like, is he the across both leagues?
No.
I think, yeah. I know we weren't prepared for this conversation. This is one where usually like we want to like sit down and like
Yeah, but like I side with the thing is we may see 2 pitching triple crowns this year in wins, in strikeouts, and an ERA. Like it's hard because Tarek Skubal is leading the American League in wins for a team that is 1 game above 500.
I know. But you old head. Look at the FIP.
I'm not going to look at FIP because that's what took Bueller Cy Young away in 2021.
I know. It is interesting though. I think that conversation like should be a good one at the end of the year because I think it can be decided over the next several starts. Not that it really matters, but it's a fun talking point. Like the MLB Cy Young winner, the overall Cy Young winner, I think could be determined by how these next few starts go between these two guys, and how much more they're going to let Skubal go. Because if Sale does eclipse him on the inning side, he's about 8 behind, 7 2/3 behind.
Yeah.
It'll be a really interesting conversation. 2.46 ERA versus 2.51. One more start for Skubal, and definitely a better pitcher environment. But again, it's kind of the same Bregman conversation. Like, what you want him to go pitch in Williamsport to prove it to you? Like, what's he supposed to do? But I think that's an interesting one because it also puts in perspective, though, right? Like, Tarek Skubal is blossoming before our eyes into one of the game's best pitchers, and we're looking at him as, okay, this is one of the next superstars on the mound in the game. And Chris Sale looked like he was on his way out, and now he's matching that budding superstar at 35 years old. It's just you love to see that.
You love it. Chris Sale, a career 3.05 ERA. He's going to hit 2,000 innings. He's about to hit 2,400 strikeouts his next time out. He has 8 All-Star appearances. He has a World Series. He has now 7 top 5 Cy Young finishes, and he will have a Cy Young award. That's like 53 career WAR. That sounds like a Hall of Famer to me.
I think a couple more solid seasons, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I am with you. Like, I think he's the new Hall of Fame. He's the new pitching Hall of Famer that we look at, right? Where it's like, I think in the past, we've always talked about how you have to have these thresholds. These thresholds are impossible now. So, like, I think with Sale, it's very possible with a few more good seasons. But I'm looking at K's, like, he's still behind some guys like Felix Hernandez, AJ Burnett, Cole Hamels.
Yeah.
So if he can I think if he gets closer to that 3,000 mark in strikeouts, I think it's a no-brainer, right? Like Kershaw's about like 32 away from that, which is crazy. We should get a graphic going on that soon.
I think we have one. Yeah.
Do we? Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think once you get over like that 2,500 mark, you can really see it's almost a shoo-in that he's going to do that, obviously. And then once you get to like 2,700, that's where I think it's pretty much a slam dunk. Like you get to surpass David Cone. Like David Cone should honestly be considered in there, but like that's the one where it's like, it's so close. And then you get to Mike Mussina. Like that's right where it's at for me. So a couple more solid years, get the hardware here, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down right now. So you'll love to see it.
Yep. That'll do it today. We'll be back tomorrow. You'll be able to wake up and listen to us on your commute tomorrow as scheduled. But appreciate you guys. Again, go check out the fine work that everybody is doing over at justbaseball.com. Get your merch, listen to the pods, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.